Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Oh, let me put my mic in. This is Aurelia Davis coming to you on a Friday. It's already Friday. It's already Friday, already Friday. And we have just been having some beautiful weather here in Chicago. It makes you very, very lazy as far as getting out and trying to just do something in the sun, after being in a Chicago winter, a Chicago winter. But anyway, coming to you, I've been over the last couple of weeks, I've been giving you quite a few tips for exiting out the school year. But let me introduce myself again. My name is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator. And I am a former retired CPS teacher for 31 years. I worked in the school system, Chicago Public Schools, enjoyed every last minute of it, every last minute of it. And after retiring in 2012, I decided that I wanted to continue in the work that I was doing, but in a different capacity to the point where I am now supporting teachers that are still in the classroom and that are still in this particular field. So anything that I bring to you from this particular point on is to help you as an educator. I also have tips for parents. I also have tips for students, but basically my support goes toward educators. In other words, those individuals that are in front of our children and allowing them to be the best of who they are and what they have in order to, and then to portray that or to issue that to the students that sit in front of them. So, I know this is a very interesting time of year for you as an educator. When I was teaching, basically by the February, March, I started finalizing things. I started looking at my different subjects. By that time, the last report card would have gone out. And what ends up happening is that you start accumulating all of your grades, pulling all of the grades together. And usually, if you were in a school system where there were 4 quarters, you had, two in the fall coming into the winter, and then you had two. That final grade would be a combination, of course, of all of those grades together. And what I did notice as I was teaching year to year to year is that the beginning grades, I would have children that will basically be in the beginning stages of advancement as far as grades are concerned. And so, what I'm saying is that those students that I really had given A's and B's or starting out in A's and B's, and I can't remember really giving a child an A in the beginning because but no, let me take that back. What ends up happening is that if those children are true A students, that means they'll be true A students throughout the whole school year. That means they have the capacity to learn, they have the capacity to receive content and keep content. So they're adding on to what they already have. They're adding on to what they have as far as academics is concerned. So I found out that my students that were typically A students in the beginning remained A students in subjects, some subjects, not all subjects. But I also found out that that particular child that started out with an A in the beginning of the year, as the content got harder or more difficult toward the middle of the year, and I started teaching toward the next grade that they were going into, most likely, usually their grades went down, like maybe from an A to a B in reading or in math or whatever like that. But then I did have some students that basically just kept on the straight and narrow and received A's throughout. So by June, they still are considered A students. But at the same time, considering that I was teaching primary, and primary is the types of grades being kindergarten through third grade, where children have some children have skills that are already meeting criteria. Uh, some children have skills that are already meeting primary curriculum or primary criteria. In other words, you have some students that they basically are in kindergarten, but by the time they're in third grade, they're basically reading at a fourth grade level. And so you look at those particular students and you just know that they're going to be, very, very, very successful. What they do is there's a tendency for them to start falling off like around fifth or sixth grade because there's a terrific jump as far as academic study and content by the time they're in fifth and sixth grade. So you're looking at your grades, you're pulling all of the grades together, you're looking at those students, like I said before, and I've been talking since day one. You have those three groups. You have that high group that's on grade level and above. You have that middle group that might be having difficulties in reading or in math. And then you have that other group, the group that's at the bottom, and we're going to consider low group, but basically those that particular group of children that are having challenges, and usually those that particular group of children might be bilingual. They may also have an IEP. They're struggling in some other areas that you have possibly and hopefully have gotten to the major decision as to what this particular child needs in order for them to continue in education and be successful in education. So the tips I would say is that as an educator, start looking at your overall class size, start looking at your overall class group, using those three groups again. Look and see exactly where their children are landing as far as their academics. That high group, their grade level and above. These last couple of weeks, and we're looking at April, so basically school is ending in May or the early part of June. CPS is ending early. They didn't give it to me when I was like that. I digress. Anyhow, but basically school is over. That's what I'm saying. In April, you've gotten through so many things. You've gotten through standardized testing. You have just basically gotten through your books as much as possible. What I did also is that knowing coming into April and May, what I did as an educator is I started allowing those students, if these things still exist in your classroom, I don't know, but those students that were those practice books that we were working on practice books throughout the school year, throughout the that practice book that was attached to their basal reader, the practice book that was attached to their English book, the practice books that was attached to their math book. I start letting those students work through those particular pages, and what would happen is that I will put them in groups, and then what would happen is that they would work on different pages. They will work in groups on different things. So if we hadn't, say for instance, we hadn't gotten to heavily division or multiplication in third grade the way we needed to, even though those are three core subjects that are going to be tapped into before they go to fourth grade. Children are going to know how to multiply and divide. And they're going to, so those particular areas, they're going to know how to have some skills in it. But those particular pages that's going to push them a little deeper into those particular subjects as far as math is concerned, I would let them start working those pages. And I found out they loved it. They loved it because it was challenging, and then they can talk about it. And what we would do is that we would sometimes I would even put the answers on the board, and it was because they were not going to be graded assignments. They were not going to be graded assignments, but if the rubric was on the board as to what they needed to do and what they needed to meet, then the children would go through the particular problems and find out exactly how they could reach that particular problem or get that particular answer for a particular problem. With the reading, of course, what I would do is I would tap into the vocabulary. I would build up as much vocabulary skills that they needed, those children needed, and have them quiz each other on it, or either take the words and make stories out of them. So basically, it was a lot of group activities completing the practice books that we had started in September. And then, of course, any child that did not finish, well, basically, they were allowed to take those practice books home, those workbooks home, so that they can continue to work with them over the summertime, over the summer. So that was something. Another tip is I would start pulling together all of my grades, especially in my grades in reading and math. I would go through my cue cards. And see, the thing about it is that everything I did in those days was on paper. It was hard. We had paper and pens and whatever. I'm sure that a lot of things are basically on. A lot of the reports that you need to complete before the year is over is now on your computer. And so even if you are doing it through your computer, there's nothing wrong with taking the time to be 5 or 6 steps ahead before you are called on that last day. It used to tickle me so much because when I was a first novice as a teacher, I would try to do all of my records on record day. That's what we called it. We called it record day. I would try to do all of my records on record day. That included attendance, that included grades, that included any notes and things that needed to go over to the new teacher. And we had these what was called accumulation cards, cum cards. And we just would write everything in. Everything would be written in. And I'm hoping that that no longer exists and everything is being done on computers now and just being forwarded over to teachers, you know. So, but I found out that this is something ending up the year is nothing that you can do in one day. It's nothing you can do in one day. And let's just be honest, as educators, sometimes we get behind. We get behind as far as grading is concerned and putting information into our laptops and so forth. We get behind, you know, but at the same time, this is the time for you to play catch up. You have given your students something to do, those last little few projects. And like I said before, they're working on workbooks and things and projects that they have not been able to finish yet, you know, and let the children work. By this time they are self-sufficient. They are self-sufficient and they can basically do things at their seat without you directing them. Even first graders, okay? They basically have gotten into the realm of basically self-motivation, self-care, and they can basically do things. And you are there to just basically finish what you need. Um, so that those particular tips, you know, like I said before, look at your three groups. That's the first thing. Look at your three groups and see exactly where they are. That last group that's on your list, you still may want to give them some one-on-one group activities you made. This would be the perfect time to call those particular students up, no matter how many you have, two or three a day. And what you would want to do is basically call those particular students up and just exactly see exactly where they evaluate them. And then as you are evaluating them, what you want to also do is take notes, because by this time you may know what that child is where that child is going to as far as the next grade is concerned and what teacher they're going to. So to be able to do a diagnostic notes on that one particular child, especially that child in that last group, and let the teacher know exactly what their deficits are, what their strengths are, just to give a little bit of history about that particular child, what they like to do, what they have problems with, what they struggle with. You want to be put in like a little single diary entry, you know. And this is something that you don't necessarily have to put on your laptop, but you can basically put it on like an index card with the child's name on it. And when they take those folders over, if they still have folders, when they take, you know, or either deliver those particular cards to the teachers, you know, personally, that would be so helpful to the teacher that they're going to, because then that teacher has the opportunity to be able to evaluate the child before they even get into their classroom in September. So write that little diary entry on an index card. Doesn't have to be long, but basically, you know, those children that are still struggling in your class, you want those teachers to be able to see exactly what type of child this is and how they can continue to help the child that you have worked with all year. That is something that's very, very valuable, very, very valuable. um, looking at your three groups, doing a private diary for those particular children that are still having struggles or still struggling. And then at the same time, that middle group, you can still do like a little diary entry on them. I would break it down to reading or math or both as to what those particular children are having issues with. And because even though a child is having problems with math, it might be fluency, it may be vocabulary, it may be comprehension. So the teacher would know exactly what they can do with that particular, you know, that what I, in other words, Johnny is coming to my classroom. I see that his teacher wrote that he's having problems with vocabulary words. So I want to allow him to build up a vocabulary deck or vocabulary box, so he'll have vocabulary. And so that's how we as teachers help each other. We give information about our students, positive information, but at the same time, information that will basically help that child continue to help that child from grade to grade. I've been doing it and it works. It works. And the teachers have come back and say, "Oh, Miss Davis, thank you so much. Now I know what I need to do with this particular child." And of course, that group that's basically soaring, that group that is soaring, let those educators know, oh my goodness, this child likes this. They're interested in STEM. They're interested in STEAM. They like technology, and they'll just be able to give them those things that motivate them to take them to the next level. So all three groups, if you can pass on those little one card, index card diary entries to that next teacher, that would be very, very helpful. And like I said before, start getting your grades together. Start, if you are allowed to start finishing up for the year, then do that. Then do that, because you want to be able to reflect also and decide exactly how did this year go? What was I able to accomplish? What could I still have worked on a little bit more? Those types of things. So as you are sending your students off, you take the time to evaluate and reflect on yourself as an educator. And most likely, I have found out from past experiences that usually the testing or standardized testing and those things, and I'm not sure how it works in the building now, but those particular things will basically be added to that particular child's record. And so at this particular time, as an educator, you really cannot reflect on how that test went, because testing, some children can be very brilliant in some things, but not test well. So I have taken the testing that I have given my children. I have looked at it, but I haven't made that the end all as to what makes this child who he is. I have never been that type of educator. And unfortunately, I know that in the building, that's what they're pushing. But at the same time, I speak for those children that one day of testing does not make a child. One day of testing does not make a child. I'll back it up 150%. Okay. I remember telling you a few minutes ago, we were talking about resources for parents and how to um, give those parents those additional resources. Like I said before, that's something also you can do. Make sure you have made that resource list for that third group and maybe that middle group, that resource list that you can give to parents as to some things that they can do over the summertime to keep them in step as far as learning is concerned. But I mentioned a book that has been, and this book has been in place for such a long time. And I was in the store. I was in Costco a couple of days ago, and I stepped over in the corner and I saw my book. This is for the toddler, and basically it's by Scholastic, and it says Scholastic Success with Toddlers. And so this particular book is talking about if you're working with a toddler, they're going to be going through colors, shapes, alphabets, numbers, basic concepts, tracing, and cutting, which is preschool. Preschool. But they, at one time, they didn't even have for toddlers, but they do have for toddlers. So these are for the preschool teachers, for parents with preschoolers. Parents with preschoolers. So that's the book for toddlers. That's the book for toddlers. Okay. Um, and then, of course, like I said before, these particular curriculum guides go up all the way to, I think, eighth grade. So this is the second grade. This is the second grade. This is the second grade, and this is the second grade workbook. You see how thick they are, right? You see how so you really can't. The parents, the kid can't say, "I don't have anything to do." Oh, yes, you do. You can always work 2 or 3 pages out of this. And like I was saying before, this is not a punishment. This is not a punishment. This is enrichment. This is enrichment for the child. So you want them to be able to basically be able to take your second grader, third grader, especially those children in the primary grades, and then of course the older ones that might seem a little bit behind what they're doing, in that particular grade and not completely on grade level, then to get them one of these books. I don't have a problem putting these books out, but it's by Scholastic, and they look like they have gotten a lot better because at the time I think there was quite a few companies that were doing it. But this is second grade. So even if you had a first grader that's ready for second grade skills, take them through this particular book: math, reading, writing, grammar, science, and maps. Okay. And then, of course, some of the inside. Of course, you may have to sit with them. I would not give them more than maybe 1 or 2 pages, a day to do. If it's according to how fast they get through it. If they get through it real fast, then let them do a couple of more pages if they're enjoying it. But what you also want to do is you don't want to let them do all of the math pages because that's what they love. You don't want to let them do all of the reading because that's what they love, and they may not like writing. So whatever they're having deficits on and not feeling too good about, that's what you want to push a little bit more. But these books are available. They're only $10. $10, and you can use these over and over again. And of course, the good thing about it, parents, is that oh my goodness, I don't see that. But at one time they put the answers in the back, but I think you can go online now to find the answers. But at one time they did put the answers in the back for the teachers and whatever. But it's very interesting, just all kinds of things, handwriting, all of those, some of those skills that they're not teaching in school anymore. Okay. But anyways, capital letters and things like that. So these particular books are available. If you're either in Chicago or in Illinois, you can get it at Costco or some of the other bookstores, or either, yeah, I think they have them at Barnes and Noble and some other bookstores. But this is a good reading resource book. This is a good resource enrichment book for any grade and any child. Like I said before, if that child is in third grade, but they're basically doing fourth grade work, get them the fourth grade book. Get them a fourth grade book. And if they're accomplishing that, get them the fifth grade book. And even throughout the year. So that child, there's nothing wrong with pushing a child ahead of what they need to know, ahead of what they are going to learn. That's always very valuable. That's always very valuable. Well, this is Aurelia Davis. I had fun talking about this today. This is my best time of year. And I sit back and I remember when I used to smile, and we just would have so much fun taking them outside and doing water balloons and water guns and things like that. We did all of that at school at the end of the year. We just had a ball. I celebrated my children being with me for the whole year and just loving them to life. This is Aurelia Davis. If you would like to learn a little bit more about me, please feel free to go over to my website, aureliadavis.com. On that page, you will see all of the offerings that I have for you. Um, I'm still doing lesson plan audits. Of course, that may be something. Sometimes teachers look back at lesson plans that they had that may have not worked in that classroom during the school year. So we can look at those. I also have like conferences, or call card. Not take it back. I have where you can call me and we can talk about what's going on. I also have, oh my goodness, uh, still taking pre-orders for the preschool STEM learning cards. And a couple of people have asked me about writing curriculums for their children, especially in preschool, or if they're thinking about doing homeschooling. So that service is also available for you. But go to my website and see my offerings. This is aureliadavis.com. Have a nice weekend and enjoy teaching.